What I'd like to talk about today is an idea on a new deal structure. Innovation in technology drives innovation in deal structures. And today, the hottest innovations in technology, what people are calling the core of the fourth industrial revolution, are innovations around artificial intelligence. Let me start with a quote from the 1800s from John Wanamaker, who was reputed to have said, "Half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is, I don't know which half." Today, the great online merchants and the online advertising companies have really solved that problem. John wasn't thinking about this right. 99% of the advertising he spent was wasted. Today, where we are is the ability for the great online retailers and the great online merchants using AI technology to say, yes, if you buy A, B, and C, you almost certainly buy D. And if you're going to buy D, it would be smart or foolish to extend credit to you. But that's not the topic here today at our Tech Transactions Conference. What we'd like to talk about is not how you can build a great company based on the power of artificial intelligence. We'd like to talk about deal structures to be able to buy those insights onto what someone would be willing to buy next, which drug will work for which patient, whether it would be a smart investment to invest in a particular company, and so forth. And to do that, what I'd like to do is start by talking about the artificial intelligence ecosystem and the customer-supplier relationship that we're trying to form. So, this is the ecosystem we're thinking about. We've got at the center of it, as was traditional in these conferences, a customer and a supplier. The supplier leverages three groups of technologies or three groups of resources to create actionable insights: data, tools, and talent. The data comes in two flavors. One is data from data licensors, and that data is often well-structured, well understood, clear data provenance, and so forth. And it comes with data licenses about who, what, where, and when, and why of the license rights. But the real value for companies, the thing that we think will be driving this new value in the fourth industrial revolution, is that other collection of data. The data that the customer is collecting through its enterprise resource planning systems, through its its network of Internet of Things devices, its employees, its investments in portfolio companies, and so forth. The second resource is tool providers. Few of the companies that are working in this area will develop their own artificial intelligence math and so forth. What customers do and what suppliers do is leverage the resources that others have produced. Sometimes it's open source software, licensed software, software as a service. It's constantly developing and constantly changing. And then the final piece is talent. So let's talk for a minute about what the people do in this new environment, in this new innovation. First, the people get together and define success. What are we trying to achieve? Is it, for example, to say that if someone has bought products A, B, and C, that the best product to put before them is product D? Is it to decide whether to offer a loan? How do you tell whether you've been successful? Is it that if you project a 80% likelihood of repayment, that about 80% of those people repay? Second, you go through the data. It turns out the company's data is a mess. It was designed for some other purpose. It was gathered through processes which might have evolved over 30 or 50 years, and it's not accurate. There are numerous problems in any data source you see, particularly what are called the alternative data sources, things like data collected by sensors and Internet of Things devices. The data scientists, the team, will need to analyze the data using data analysis tools, ingest and normalize the data using data ingestion tools, and then they'll need to scrub that data using data cleaning tools. Third step, configure the tool. So you've got an AI tool, you've licensed or software as a service tool, and you think, okay, so what am I going to set? First, I need to tell the tool what that definition of success is, what I'm trying to produce. Second, I need to say which data points to consider. And that's, for example, obviously there's a benefit in choosing data points which are probative, but from a legal standpoint, we'd like to be in that discussion also. The New York Department of Financial Services earlier this year stated that for alternative data sources, things like likes on Facebook, you need to be very careful when you're using that in underwriting insurance. Once you've done that, the team sort of trains the AI with what we call training data. How does that work? The way an artificial intelligence system works is by building a model of reality that it can use to produce real-time actionable insights. Those models are like the spreadsheets that you produce already, but considerably more complex. So you press the button, it develops a model, you put it through testing with test data, it tests the model, and then you take a look and you say, how good were these results on my test data, where I already know what I should have gotten? Well, if they're great, you put it into production. If not, maybe you do an iterative process. And what we understand from our clients who do a lot of AI is that it's very much an iterative process. Keep going back, scrub the data, find new errors there. Keep going back, change your model parameters. Maybe we should be tweaking the model so that instead of straight lines, we've got curves. Maybe the curves should fit more closely or less closely. We've been overfitting. Maybe the problem is we're overweighting the old data compared to the new data. But you come out of it with a set of answers that go onto production systems and deliver actionable insights. Unfortunately, there's something called model drift, it's actually reality drift. Reality changes, model stays constant. So what you may want to do is rerun this entire process periodically, monthly, annually, to make sure it stays in place. So let's now go back to this question of how do you buy the actionable insights? What's the right deal structure for the supplier and the customer? As you all know, we have three primary transactional structures for this arrangement. The first is the professional services structure. If the actionable insight that you were looking for was, what's the best strategy for my company going forward, and you're hiring a strategy consultant, this would be the structure to use. But what we've heard from clients and what we believe to be true is that it's very difficult to fit that structure with this model, because the best people in data science, the most creative, the most effective, are moving toward places where they can monetize that additional skill and they can get superior returns from being better data scientists. So professional service is probably not the approach. How about the cloud model, one-to-many? That has been extraordinarily successful for one-to-many applications. For example, if you today are getting a flow of voice communications and you'd like to turn those into digital communications, it's very easy to buy on a cloud model conversion of the voice communications to digital communications, and a wide variety of things like that. But it doesn't fit for your specific business and how your specific business can buy actionable insights for the customers that come before you. And that might take you to the managed service model. And you might say, well, this is easy. We'll just have a base level of actionable insights and we'll have an arc and a rook and so forth. But that again is difficult because managed services is a fantastic model if you know what you want to buy. It works if you're saying, I have a function, I'm pleased with the way it's going, I know the service levels I need, and I want to pay a little bit less than I pay today. But here, the challenge is that you don't know what is possible. The supplier doesn't know what can be done with your data. This hasn't been tried before. We don't know how good the tools are getting. There's clearly exponential growth in the power of the tools. But it's hard to say how much better the tools will get. And then the talent, of course, is untested in the environment. So what could we do? Well, there's a possibility that this is the time to think about partnership. And I know what you're thinking. Probably most of you have been in this discussion many times, and your clients say, the best deal would be a partnership. We need a partnership here. We need a sense of partnership. And you say, no, you don't. No, you gotta be kidding. It's not a partnership. You're not creating a new entity. There's no sharing of risks and rewards of a shared entity. There's no agency. This is not a partnership. And yet, the business people keep coming back to this partnership idea. And if you look at what's happening in the environment today, where some of the big successes are in monetizing artificial intelligence between a traditional customer and a traditional supplier, it's what we call the X-Tech revolution: fintech, insurtech, medtech, proptech, and so forth. And in those deals, one of the most common structures looks like a partnership. The traditional customer enters into a traditional customer-supplier relationship, but they also take a minority investment in the producing company so that they gain based on the successes and failures of the model. And they end up being something like a partnership. So let's consider, if technology innovation drives deal innovation, what kind of an innovation this technology might drive as a deal innovation for customers and suppliers in the purchase of real-time actionable insights. First, you'd want payment based not on the number of actionable insights or the amount of effort put in, but on the value of that insight. And you might think, well, that's hard. That's always been our barrier in managed service. We've never been able to price the value of the thing that's done. But here, the whole core of data science, the whole core of the process, is to find a definition of success, a definition of accuracy, a definition of right, and test, and iteratively test against that definition. So here there is a way to define how good it is, and in fact, you can barely walk into the process without some way of figuring that out. You'd also need, likely, a set of commitments sufficient to warrant specific investments. As a customer, you would want the supplier to be willing to put its best talent into trying to develop an engine that creates the best sort of insights, the most effective insights. And that likely will require some partnership-like terms, genuine commitment on the side of the customer. It also likely will require genuine commitment on the side of the supplier, because the customer will say, I don't have many shots at this. I've got this tremendous collection of data. I've got this huge business problem. I've got disruptors coming after me. I need to find someone who's committed to make this work. So you'll also want suppliers in a partnership mindset. Third, you want some sort of substantial customer obligations to provide that data and guidance. Again and again, what we hear for decades, what we've heard is that the problems in innovative arrangements, innovative technology arrangements, are not the enthusiasm on the supplier side, but the lack of enthusiasm on the customer side. So, unlike our standard model where the customer's obligation is to pay, this might be a place for the customer side to reach out and say, what will we commit to make sure this actually works? However, the customer will then need much more serious information and decision rights than the customer might have in a typical deal. So for example, you'd want to be active participants in what sort of models are chosen and what sort of data is produced. And it's not just because the New York Department of Financial Services believes that you have to be careful on certain types of data. It's also that this will be the core of the customer's business. The customer, in many cases, will become driven by a company driven by its AI. It needs to know how that AI works. The customer will need to understand the production of the insights well enough to understand where they are safe to use and unsafe to use. So the word partnership, as the business people would understand it, would fit well with a structure with a great deal of information and decision rights. And in those areas where the supplier should be in control, for example, the choice of talent, the choice of tools, with the right information decision rights over what outcome we're getting to, the customer can step back and have few control rights, more of a partnership level structure on the actual choice of tools and talents. And then the final piece, and perhaps the piece that will be game changers in most of these deals, is secondary uses of the data. What we are seeing today is data with a primary use of perhaps being an accounts payable system or something of that sort, becoming an engine for something else. An engine, for example, credit decisioning. But with every one of these interactions, with the deep, deep dive into the particular data, you'll see secondary uses of data, new profit opportunities. And there will have to be a question, of how to share the profits from those opportunities to create a true service partnership that maximizes the value and avoids costly pitfalls. So, is this the structure that we'll see for the sale of actionable insights? Will it become services partnerships? And 3 years from today, will we be talking about services partnership terms? It's hard to know. But it's easy to guess that it would be worth the time to invest to understand these technologies, understand the constraints of current deal structures, and think about ways that we may be able, as lawyers, to help innovate in deal structures to create the new potential value from artificial intelligence in a customer-supplier relationship. Again, thank you for your attention. Thank you for being here. Good luck and good innovating.